Hello and welcome to this session on decision trees. Today what we are going to do is we're going to have a look at what we mean by decision trees. Then we'll look at actually doing some calculations in terms of using a decision tree itself. And then finally we'll wrap this session up by having a look at evaluating decision trees. So looking at the pros and the cons of using them in business. So to start off with, what are decision trees? Now this is an example of what a decision tree is. Now, essentially, it is a quantitative approach to make a decision in business. So what you can see here, you can see an advertisement campaign or a new product. Those are two decisions that we're looking to make in the business. Should we go ahead with the advertisement campaign or should we go ahead with the new product? And then we've got these branches that come off it, and we'll explain what each of them mean in just a moment. But as we've already said, a decision tree, its main goal is to help the business make a decision. Henceforth, a decision tree, it's within the name. So when we look at the purpose of a decision tree, first of all, it's there to evaluate and compare different options against each other. You know, decision trees, they are very helpful in looking at different choices a business can make, by laying out all the different possible options and their potential outcomes. We'll come on to that in just a moment. It also provides a visual representation of decisions and obviously the consequences for the business. They will also incorporate risk by assigning probabilities to different outcomes. So those probabilities just represent what's the likelihood that this consequence will obviously happen. And then finally, the main thing is that decision trees will help identify for the business the best possible outcome for them to make. You know, what is that optimal course of action? What decision should they look at doing? And now what I want us to do is to have a look at breaking down all the different areas of a decision tree. So what you can see here is that we can see a standard example of a decision tree like we saw in one of the previous slides. First of all, we've got the investment option, and that's the text in black. And these are the different choices that the business is looking into. So we can see once again, the business is considering either investing in an advertisement campaign or look at launching a new product. Next, we have the numbers in red, and this represents the investment cost. And you will see them in brackets, that just means it's a negative amount. But this is the amount of money the business will need to invest in that option if they wanted to go ahead with it. Very important when we calculate net gain. Then the numbers in blue represent the payoffs for the business. So these are the potential financial returns that a business can expect from an investment option. Now we can see that there is two per each option, so per each decision that we could make. With these payoffs, one of them will be a scenario where the decision has gone really well, and the other one will represent if the decision hasn't gone so well. So we can see here for the advertisement campaign, if it does pay off well, it's going to make us £100,000. If it doesn't pay off well, it's only going to make us £10,000. And then we have our probabilities. And this is the likelihood that a particular event or outcome will occur. So what that means is that for an advertisement campaign, there is a 40% chance likelihood that we are going to make £100,000 from it. But there is also a 60% chance that we're only going to make £10,000. So that's what the probabilities represent. So now we've had a look at a bit of an introduction on what a decision tree is and the purpose of it. Let's have a look now at what calculations we need to be doing. Now the first calculation that we'll be looking at is what we call the expected value. Now the expected value is the average anticipated outcome of a decision. And this is by considering all possible outcomes and their probabilities. And the way that we calculate this is we take the sum of the probability times by the financial outcome. And because remember, when we saw the decision tree earlier, there's those two different options, one that it goes really well, one that it doesn't go so well. And we take the sum of both of them. It will make a little bit more sense once we've gone through the step-by-step example. The next one we have is what we call our net gain. And the net gain is the difference between the expected value of an investment option and its investment cost. In essence, how we calculate this is that we take the expected value, or the total expected value, minus the investment cost. Let's now go through a step-by-step example to show you how this works. So the first step is to draw out the different options that the business could take. So option 1 is looking at investing in an advertisement campaign. Option 2 is looking at investing in a new product. And then what we want to do is we want to attach the investment cost to both options. So the advertisement campaign is going to cost us £35,000, whereas that new product, we're going to have to invest £40,000. These will be given to you in the case study. It's going to be very rare that you have to draw out the entire decision tree, but just in case you do. Then we want to draw out all the possible outcomes for each option. Now, step 3 is to start including the probabilities of these possible outcomes. Now, when we are including it, as we said earlier, for the top one, there is a 40% chance likelihood, and we'll talk about the payoff in just a moment. But both of those outcomes that we can see for the advertisement campaign, the probability should add up to 1. So 0.4 plus 0.6 equals 1. And looking at our new product here, there is a 30% chance likelihood that obviously it goes really well. That means that there is a 70% likelihood that it doesn't go so well. And this is when we start adding in those outcomes and what those possible outcomes might be. So we add these in blue. So for the advertisement campaign, there's a 40% chance likelihood that we're going to make £100,000. However, there's a 60% chance likelihood that we only make £10,000. For our new product, there is a 30% chance likelihood now that we make £150,000. However, there is a 70% chance likelihood that we only make £1,000. Now, once we have all the outcomes and the probabilities, we want to start calculating the expected value. The first step is that for each of the individual branches, we take the probability and times by the potential outcome. So for the first one, we do 0.4 times 100,000, which gives me £40,000. For the bottom one for advertisement campaign, we do 0.6 times 10,000, which gives me £6,000. Same again for the new product, 0.3 times by £150,000, which equals £45,000. And last but not least, 0.7 times 1,000 equals £700. And we want to calculate the total expected value. So we just add them both together. So for the advertisement campaign, we do 40,000 plus 6,000, which gives me an expected value for the advertisement campaign of £46,000. We do the same again for the new product, 45,000 plus 700 gives me a total expected value of £45,700. Now there is only one more thing we need to do, which is to look at calculating the net gain. Now, as we said before, we have to start incorporating the investment cost for each. So once again, the advertisement campaign is £35,000. So we take the expected value, or the total expected value, minus the investment cost. Total expected value was £46,000 minus our investment cost of £35,000, which gives me a net gain of £11,000. You do the exact same thing again now for the new product. We had an expected value of £45,700 minus our investment cost of £40,000, which gives me our option 2 net gain of £5,700. And all you have to do is then write a summary of which one you think would be the best decision for the business. We would go for option 1. We always go for the option which has the higher net gain. However, if it is the case that both of the options that are presented, they give us a negative net gain, the answer is we want to do nothing, because there's no point investing into something that is just going to lose us money. Now we've had a look at what is a decision tree, the purpose of it, and how we actually use the calculations for our decision trees. The last thing we need to look at now is evaluating them, given the advantages and the disadvantages of using them. So let's start off. The first main advantage for using decision trees is that it gives us a visual representation of decision making, and that can be quite useful because when we are visualizing stuff, it helps us employees and managers and senior managers as well. It helps them understand the decision a bit more, and it also helps to evaluate and compare different options. We've been speaking about an example of a business looking at an advertisement campaign or investing in a new product. So by evaluating the different options, we are able then to understand which one is the best option for us to go forward. And there's also what's really good about it is that we can start to incorporate risk. Because as we said earlier, we use these probabilities to identify that, I don't know, there's only a 10% chance likelihood that this option is going to go well. This is trying to get us to think about what risks are involved with those decisions, because at the end of the day, no decision will be 100% certainty that it will go well. And finally, it is fairly easy to understand and interpret. You know, when we are trying to make that decision, we just choose the option with the highest net gain. However, there are some disadvantages when it does come to decision trees. The first one is that in business, if we are investing £40,000 or, you know, even more money, like hundreds of thousands, sometimes just drawing a simple decision tree won't be enough, and it may begin to oversimplify a fairly complex decision. And as well, we've obviously included the probabilities, but you need to ask the question, where have these probabilities come from? Who made the probabilities? Was it software? Was it people who made it? What's the experience of those individuals who came up with those probabilities? You know, are they an intern? Are they senior management? And it's therefore important to note that these probabilities, they may be prone to inaccuracy. We could say that actually, I don't know, on the decision tree, that there is an 80% likelihood that it's going to succeed. But in realistic terms, that could be completely off. And when looking at our decision trees, they only use quantitative data. We only use numerical data such as the financial gain. And that means we ignore any qualitative data. For example, you know, is there important legislation that we should know? Is there changes in the external environment? How can we use pestle analysis? When we look at decision trees, it ignores all of those qualitative factors and data. And finally, whether the decision tree will be a good tool to use when making decisions in the business, it all depends on how accurate and how reliable is the data we are using. Thank you so much for watching this lesson. I hope to help you understand a little bit more in terms of what decision trees are, how to use and calculate them, and most importantly, understanding the advantages and the disadvantages of our decision trees. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you in the next one.